The S&P 500, for example, which is the main one most people quote, has done, 10% every single year for the past 20 odd years. Think about what that potentially means for your money. I'm 47 years old. I feel like I was 25 years old 5 years ago. Time flies. You think you're going to do the right things in your 20s and your 30s, but career, work, family, life takes over.
How many people who move to Dubai thinking for a few years they're going to save a lot of money end up going back in debt?
I have friends who still do this despite my advice. Good month. Go spend.
Would you say it's a bad idea to surround yourself with people who earn more than you, or is that a good idea?
He had a massive house in Kingston in the UK, £1.5 million house. Didn't have any savings whatsoever. Had £60,000 on credit card debt. How is that possible, you'll ask?
Hello and welcome back to the Dream with Dr. Sheen podcast, the show where the science of success meets lived experience. I am Sheen, your host, and today's episode is brought to you by Pepperstone. Our guest is Peter Komolafe, an award-winning financial expert, best-selling author, TV presenter, and founder of Conversation of Money. After overcoming homelessness and debt, he built a successful career in banking and financial services, rising to senior leadership positions within global institutions. Today, he's dedicated to helping people take control of their finances through practical education, empowering them to build wealth, confidence, and long-term financial security. By the end of the episode, you'll know how to build real wealth by thinking, investing, and managing money like the world's top 1%, even if you're starting from scratch or drowning in debt. Most importantly, you'll have a practical roadmap to start building wealth using exactly what you have right now. I hope you enjoyed this episode as much as I did. Hi, Peter.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm well, thank you. Apart from a slight cold, so forgive my voice, but I'm well, thanks. How are you?
Good, thanks. Good, thanks. Listen, we're here today to talk all things money. And we want to help people understand how to make their money work for them, right? But we'll start from the beginning with you because you create and share your story a lot online. And I think you started back in the day when you had a proper job as well, right?
Yep, that's right. Yeah.
But most people are afraid to be seen as content creator when they have a professional career. What made you start it?
Purely because I ended up working in an industry that is quite secretive in and of itself. At the time, I was in wealth management, was a financial advisor at the time, just qualified to be a mortgage advisor in the UK. And my career spans 18 years in the UK. And I never grew up with money, never had money conversations at home. So during the span of my career in financial services, which was a complete mistake, all of these things about what people do with their money and things that I wish I knew, I was like, okay, so there must be a way for me to kind of like share this. It was an itch that I carried for like 3-4 years before I actually did it. And to be honest, I didn't know whether it would work because I started testing short form content, 60-second videos in 2019 before short form was even a real thing. Just on Instagram, 60-second videos every single day, just to kind of gauge whether there would be any interest. And that year went really, really well. So I decided to go more long form in 2020. But I just wanted to share all the stuff that I learned from working with financial products, working with wealthy clients, advising clients, and all of the things that when I was 18, 19, nobody told me, which would have done me a lot of good.
So would you say that it's this lack of information that's keeping a lot of people away from actually building real wealth?
I think for my generation, for sure, and maybe older generations, I think we're changing the tide slightly now, because I think if you're in your 20s or your 30s, there's an abundance of information that's now out there. Yeah. Back in the day, for me, when I was in my 20s, to invest, you had to have £5,000 capital. You had to go see a financial advisor. There was no social media. There were no platforms where you could invest as little as £1 or 100 dirhams a month or whatever it might be. So to a certain extent, I think it's been a preventative measure for people of my age and my age generation. But I'm very hopeful for the coming generations because they have access to more information. It's a lot more easy to understand. There aren't as many barriers in their way, for sure. And I'm personally invested in trying to help, kids in primary school make that change. It's part of the work that I've been doing in the UK around lobbying the government, which has now been successfully undertaken to have it as part of the curriculum in primary schools from 2028.
Yeah, that's very cool. And what I liked about your content as well was the fact that, as you say, there's an abundance of information right now, but that can also be overwhelming for someone who doesn't really understand where do I get started.
Yeah.
And whether it's my friends or even my audience, it's a lot of people who have cash on the side, but have such a scarcity mindset or a relationship with money that has not been unpacked, where using that money for themselves is something they don't understand. They would rather see it in the bank
Yeah.
account, right? But you said that you were advising wealthy clients, right? So what is one belief about money you think that wealthy people have that maybe the average middle class professional doesn't have yet?
I think it's just a fundamental understanding of how money works and the fact that money is essentially a tool to help you achieve certain things, to be able to, we talk about creating the life or structuring the life that you want. They see it as a proponent to enable those things to happen. And I think coming from a poor background, speaking from personal experience, there was always a scarcity around money because I was fostered for a period of time. My parents are Nigerian. I went back to Nigeria for 10 years. I've seen that side where we had no electricity. We had no running water. We couldn't eat for 2 or 3 days. So that scarcity mindset around money for people that don't have that in the family or necessarily have those conversations around the dinner table, that is something we carry through life. And that takes a lot of unpicking to do, intentional work
Agreed.
to unpick. And I don't think that people necessarily find themselves in the space to be able to do that properly until much, much later in life. I've come to realize at that point typically is when you hit 40 or maybe mid-40s where people start to ask real questions and start to question, well, have I done enough in the last 20 years, 30 years? Am I doing enough for the next 20 and 30 years as well? And so it can be very, very difficult as well.
That's exactly my point, right? Because so let's say in our audience, we have a lot of people who are doctors, consultants, lawyers, the classic high-paying jobs. So they have obviously accumulated a little bit of money over the years, but then that also means that they are kind of like quietly stocking that money instead of trying to make that money work for them. But what do you think is the best way for them to actually get started once they have a pot of money?
It's easy to go straight to invest the money. And I think that's what a lot of people tend to do on social media. That's the generic kind of like two route. Go and invest the money. It's easier said than done. Yes, you can invest much easier now through platforms and providers. But what I think a lot of people miss in the space is the fact that you need to have certain things in place before you do that. And those foundational stones are, it's the boring stuff that we all know in the back of our minds are fundamentally important. Like, I've never spoken at a seminar or a workshop or ever spoken publicly where I've mentioned having an emergency fund where anyone said this is a bad idea. Everyone knows that we should have one, but oftentimes people aren't quite sure exactly what they need in an emergency fund or how to go about building an emergency fund. Or if the money's just sat there, well, it's sat there. Maybe I should invest that money. There's a whole raft of things that come before that. And I think that those foundational stones are very, very important. So for me, just breaking it down in terms of simple frameworks I often share with people, it's the boring stuff. Budgeting, money management. If you're earning X amount, try not to spend that full amount, retain.
Or more than that.
Or more, yes, which is often common in the UAE and Dubai here. It's a simple mathematical equation. If you earn 50,000, try and get your spending down to something like 20, 30, so you've got some cash left over. Then we can start building an emergency fund, and then you can start investing. Make sure that you're not over leveraged on debt too much, because again, I think for me, I struggled with debt for 10 years in my personal journey. It's a drain on your income. That's money going to something else that is preventing you from being able to put your money to work for the future. So foundational levels are very important before you jump to the investing side. Once you get all the foundations in place, actually investing becomes very, very exciting, actually. And it's easy to be very optimistic around what it can deliver when you start looking at the numbers, knowing that you've got the security around you to really see it through.
Now, I'm going to break this down a little bit further. So when we say budgeting, right? So I think a lot of people, I was surprised when I found out that even a friend of mine doesn't really have an idea of when their salary comes in, how much goes into bills, how much goes into food, how much are they saving. It's just like random numbers. But what's your advice on budgeting when someone gets their salary every month? What should they be doing?
Okay, I have a very simple philosophy. My book starts on this philosophy. And this is something I've observed working with wealthy people and seeing how they structure their money. What people typically do, this is what I used to do. I'll get paid. I wouldn't know how much of my income needs to go towards essential expenditure.
Yeah.
So mortgage, rent, gas, electric, all your utilities, food, all of those things. I wouldn't have a Scooby, right? So that money will go out. And then I might have subscriptions, gyms, Netflix, that type of stuff. That money will go out. And then I would look at the pot of money and be like, oh, I've got X amount left. I'm just going to go spend it.
Yeah.
The wrong way to look at it. So the way I talk about 3 pots. So you look at how much you have coming in, and you split it into 3 expenditure buckets, essentially. The first one is your essentials. What do you have to pay for in order to live, in order to survive? The second will be your non-essentials. That's your subscriptions, gym memberships, the fun stuff that makes life worthwhile, right? Then you take a look at what you've got left. So hopefully that's a sizable amount of your income, right? You've got some money left over. You have to be intentional with that pot of money. So we've talked about emergency fund and maybe even investing. So if you've got, let's say, 10% left of your earnings altogether, be intentional around, okay, so where do I allocate this 10%? Give yourself some fun money. You know, if you want to go out and eat and go socialize and be with friends.
Travel.
Yeah, account for that, but put it in your non-essential, right? So whatever is left over is simply surplus.
Yeah.
And I think if people follow that, that's changed my finances completely over the 10, 15 years that I've been practicing it. And I think if you look at it very simply like that, it opens your eyes to how much money you potentially waste on a monthly basis.
Yeah.
Because you never had an eye on it before. And that in itself, when you go through the exercise, is actually quite scary.
I know. Well, I remember when I did it as well. Thank God I did it the first year I was working. And I was like, okay, because for the first few months, I was like, there's nothing left. Oh, where did it all go? And in your head, you think, I'm not spending that much.
Yep.
So then I was like, okay, I would keep check of everything I was spending. Then I was shocked by how much money I waste. And then I was like, okay, now we need to be a little bit better. And I love what you said in terms of like, obviously you have the bills, you have the things that are not necessary, but we want. And then whatever is left, right? But now even, let's say, this is a question because as I've mentioned before, I am currently house hunting. So even these questions still come up for me because let's say I am house hunting right now. This will become my essential bill, right? But how do you even decide how much higher do you want to go with that, right? If let's say you're paying $10 right now for your house, how do you decide whether you want to go to 20 or you stay at 10? It's even these little decisions, I think, because your salary might be increasing. If you're an entrepreneur, you don't have visibility of money. So then it's like, what's your approach to deciding what the essential bills should be? In what bracket are you?
Look, there are different systems that people will kind of like prescribe. They'll say that, you should have 50% go on your essentials, 30% go on your non-essentials, then 20% left over.
Yeah.
I tried that for years.
Okay.
And at the time I was living in London. So my rent was 55% of my income.
Seriously?
Yeah.
Oh la la.
So by the time I'd looked at all the like TFL tickets and all the other things, I was wafer thin. And what it did for me was, I was like, I'm trying to shoehorn myself into like these numbers that when you look at it from an individual point of view, they don't work for me. Correct. And so I started to feel like a failure. So for me, when I started looking at writing a book and I was asked to write a book, I started to look at my budgeting and how I structured it. And it was a simple thing. And this is true, specifically if you have like irregular income because you run a business, you're an entrepreneur. It's really important to kind of know what you have in terms of your track. So what a lot of entrepreneurs would do is, and I have friends who still do this despite my advice and talking like, Mike, please don't. Good month, go spend. Bad month, bust. Oh my God, I don't know where it's coming from. Good month, go spend. Then bad months, bust. And it's a constant roller coaster. If you're an entrepreneur with a regular income, you've got to be able to prepare yourself when you have the good months to know what is my run rate. So everyone has their own run rate on a monthly basis. So to live, it's going to cost X amount. If you have a good month, you need to hold some money back, which is where the emergency fund comes in, right? And when it comes to housing, it's the same principle. Based on your run rate, based on how much that increase will mean for your run rate, do you have the ability to get yourself a little bit of a cushion? Maybe 3, 6, maybe even 9 months, for example. But you have to sit down and do those numbers. And I think because finance for a lot of people is quite intimidating, there's a little bit of mathematics in there. People often don't feel comfortable sitting down and looking at those numbers for what they are. Because guess what? Sometimes we have to look introspectively and be like, actually, you're being irresponsible. You kind of need to rein that in a little bit.
It's a mirror you don't want to look at.
Absolutely.
Okay, so I like that. Okay, so then you think that, sure, I understand the whole irregular income thing, right? So you need to plan ahead. And I think, there are circumstances you can't control. Like we've seen this year, there are a few months where businesses take a huge hit and stuff. So that's why it's good to have that rainy fund. But now when you talk about an emergency fund, usually, obviously people have different approaches to it, but most people will tell you 6 months of your basics being covered. But would you keep that in a safe account, or would you invest that as well?
I typically ask clients not to invest it because the truth is, and I've seen this so many times, if you go and invest the money into the markets, markets will go up and down.
Yeah.
So if you need access to that money, for example, and the markets are down, you're effectively cashing in a loss. And what that does to a lot of people who may be new to investing is they'll say, well, I needed the money. The money was down. I lost money. So I'm not going to continue investing in the first place. So I always say that, look, you've got to be a little, you've got to segment this, especially in your mind as well, like really segment this out and try and put that money into something that is going to get you a good interest rate, but is easily accessible.
Right.
You can still use things like notice accounts where you can break it, but you have got to pay a penalty. But ideally, you want it available to you on a high interest rate, preferably not invested.
Yeah. Okay. Now, let's go back to the investment, right? Earlier, you kind of mentioned, how there was some financial advice online, right? We see a lot of it right now. I mean, we are even contributing to it right now. But what do you think is one of the advice that you keep hearing repeatedly and you disagree with?
Oh my God, there are so many. Wow. Okay.
Give us top 3.
There is a conversation to be had, and this is going to be controversial.
Ooh.
Okay, this is going to be very controversial, and I'll be interested to see the comment section here. I think we need to rethink the idea of buying a home to live in.
Ooh.
And the narrative that it's not worthwhile doing. I completely and utterly disagree with that. And I look at it from a financial planning point of view. So that's the first one, and that's probably the big one. There's a trend that I've been seeing. It's not necessarily advice, but it's this underlying tone that you have to have things figured out in the now. I'm seeing on social media right now people with screenshots, and I'm like, you must be making this up, because if I look at what you're invested in right now and I track that investment returns, it's not what you're saying on the screen.
It's not possible, right?
Yeah, and I'm just like, and I have to then, I start questioning myself. Like, hang on a second, how is that possible? Should I be doing more? What am I doing? So there's that. And number 3, the third one, there's a whole load of stuff around credit card usage, and leveraging debt and building credit. There's a lot of myths and misinformation around that specifically. And I think, I'm always very careful because I have a background in the industry. So I used to be a financial advisor. I've seen the impact of incorrect advice. So I always try and be as accurate as I can and careful as I can when I talk about these things. But on social media, there seems to be kind of like this blanket approach to everything. And we forget that we're individuals with different circumstances, different aspirations, and money has to play a different role for each and every single one of us. So there is no one answer that fits all.
No. Okay, we're going to deep dive in all 3 of them. So the first one you mentioned, please tell us why.
Right. Okay. So it really, really irks me to hear on social media and a lot of podcasts now that if you are looking to purchase a house, it's a complete and utter waste of money. And there are a lot of arguments for this. They talk about the cost of ownership. So the interest that you're going to pay, the ongoing cost of keeping up a house. There's that. There's this idea of, is it really an asset or is it a liability?
Yes. I was just about to ask.
That is a conversation we can have because I think it's both. It's an asset in the fact that from a long-term financial planning point of view, unfortunately, in financial planning, people who pay down their properties when they come to retire, and I'm talking normal people here, and this could apply to anyone who's maybe in their 20s or 30s right now, trying to climb the ladder. if you're not paying enough or investing into pensions or investments through the course of your lifetime, that is likely going to be the biggest asset you're going to have.
Yeah. Very likely.
And so from a financial planning point of view, long term, I think it's worthwhile taking on board that liability for the eventual asset. Now, there's a lot of conversation around how much money you pay in interest. That's just part of the deal, unfortunately. It's the way the system works. If there was a different system, I would recommend it, but there isn't, right? So that's part of the package. But hopefully, if your property appreciates in value, you still come up with a net positive, even though you've paid a lot of interest on it. Then there's the cost of ownership and maintenance. And for me, it makes me laugh because people will happily go spend a load of money on a car, put fuel in it, change tires, change brake pads, change oil. That's an ongoing cost and a depreciating asset. So the house, which is effectively your peace of mind, roof over your head, why would that not require upkeep? Like, are we serious? And I think when you combine all of those factors, just from a long-term point of view, I still think it's worthwhile for people. Obviously, in the Western world now, deposits are very, very challenging for people to come by. And I think that kind of makes that argument, it gives it more credence. But I think if you are able to do it, I think it's worthwhile in that long-term planning because you're automatically assuming that you're going to do all the right things. And unfortunately, I'm 47 years old. I feel like I was 25 years old 5 years ago. Time flies. You think you're going to do the right things in your 20s and your 30s, but career, work, family, life takes over. People tend to kick it down the can. And so you don't want to find yourself in a position where you get to retirement and you still have to pay rent and be at the mercy of inflation via your rent, so on and so forth. It's a completely different picture from a financial planning point of view.
Wow. No, that's very interesting. But you know how in today's time, you also see a lot of that on Instagram where people will rent somewhere and then put it on Airbnb. So they sublease it and then they keep telling you can make so much money from subleasing. Now we've also moved into you should rent where you live and then buy something as an investment and then rent that and make extra money. What's your take on that? Instead of buying to live in it, but buying to rent. We have a nice little fun game now for you, actually, Pete. So, again, just financial education. You have the red card and the green card.
Okay, yeah.
Very trendy with the football right now.
Yeah.
So, I'll ask you a question. If it's true, you wave the green one. If it's false, the red one. Easy.
Yeah.
We've discussed this already. Buying a house is always an asset. True or false?
I'm going to say true.
You'll say true.
I'm going to say true.
Okay.
But it can also be a liability as well.
Yeah, we've already covered that one. This one. Paying off debt should always come before investing.
In my system, yes. Because when you pay off the debt is a drain on your income. If you're able to clear the debt and invest, it allows you to start investing with pure focus, with no distractions whatsoever. That will accelerate how you're able to build wealth long term.
Yeah. Facts. The stock market is too risky for long-term wealth building.
False. 100% false.
Perfect. And a higher salary automatically makes you wealthy.
False.
False, right? And why is that?
Because it's not necessarily what you earn, it's what you keep and how you're able to get that money to work for you. I always say to people, there's no point in earning 10, 15, 20,000 pounds or dirhams a month. If you spend it all, you're still broke.
Yeah.
You're still the same person who only earns 2,000 or 3,000.
Exactly.
Like there is no material difference whatsoever.
None. And keeping all your money in cash is the safest financial strategy.
False.
Of course.
False.
Yeah. Of course. Before we carry on with this episode, let's have a quick word from today's sponsor. Pepperstone is a globally trusted online broker built for traders who take the markets seriously. With advanced technology, fast execution, and round-the-clock support, Pepperstone serves traders across the UAE and globally, giving everyone the tools and confidence to trade on their own terms. Whether you're just getting started or you're a seasoned pro, Pepperstone is built to support you every step of the way. Head over to pepperstone.com to learn more and get started today. Thank you, Pepperstone, for sponsoring this episode. Now back to the conversation.
It depends where you are. I mean, in the UK right now, owning property and renting it out is not very lucrative. The tax rules have kind of decimated that. The Renters' Rights Bill has made that a lot less profitable now. So I think there's kind of like a shift in the UK specifically for the rental market and owning a home, being a landlord in the UK because of the tax regimes now. In Dubai, very, very different. you know, because you've got a completely different tax regime.
Yeah.
So I think that model still works here for sure, 100%. So, but I think ultimately the question of what you do depends and is predicated on what you want to build for yourself. You know, if you're the kind of person where you feel like you want the freedom of movement and you have the ability to, you know, invest in a few properties and use that as your income stream, 100% do that. Especially if you can get into a market where the barrier to entry is a lot lower, like here, like back home, it's for a buy-to-let, it's 25% deposit, at least, that you got to contend with interest rates and, you know, all of the stuff that goes alongside that as well. And the fact that you've got to check all of these boxes to be a landlord. It's a different space. It depends on what you want, really. There is no right or wrong answer. It's only the right answer for you and your circumstances.
But you also mentioned, I think it was one of the things where using debt, right? A lot of people think using debt is good. But is there a good way of leveraging debt?
There is. I mean, look, I think you have to know the difference between what bad debt and good debt is. Like, I struggled with bad debt for 15 years, and I'm talking credit cards, overdrafts specifically. Those things are demoralizing. Worse yet, they're open-ended. So on a credit card, I remember times when I would do a balance transfer onto a card. 5 years later, life happens. I'm still on that same card trying to balance transfer again. I think that type of debt is extremely toxic. I think if you want to leverage good debt using mortgages, business loans to create an income stream for you, then yes, 100%. That's the way a lot of wealthy people acquire assets, because they don't necessarily use their own money. They will use the bank's money and then leverage from there to multiply property portfolios, for example. But I think it's the difference between understanding where you are and, if you want to take advantage of good debt, understanding the step that you need to get there as well. You know, in the fact of, you need to obviously have, you know, some collateral to go in.
Yeah.
You need to have a pretty good track record as well. It's just being prepared and knowing what those building blocks look like to get you there to take advantage of it.
Yeah, I guess at the end of the day, it all boils down to you need to understand your finances.
100%.
Right? And I think that's the mistake that most people do, is that we don't even understand how much money is coming in, how much is going out, and therefore, what can I do with that money and where do I want to be, right? Not everybody wants to become super wealthy, so you don't need to do everything that everyone else is doing. But speaking of super wealthy, recently we've all heard that Elon Musk became the first trillionaire.
Yeah.
And
lucky guy. I don't know, is he lucky?
Is he?
I don't know if he's lucky or not with that.
I don't think he will be able to maintain that status for long.
You know, I think SpaceX has dropped over the past week or so he's no longer a trillionaire. But I think longer term picture, I think he will.
You think?
I think he will. If SpaceX takes off and all the other things that are Starlink and everything else that's bundled into that SpaceX IPO takes off, he's entirely pushing new frontiers, and he's got first mover advantage, especially with Starlink as well. Starlink is amazing. I had my first experience of it last week flying. It's incredible.
Right? I had a Zoom call when I was on a flight.
I've never ever been able to work with full internet on a plane ever before, with no drop rates, no glitches, no nothing, for like 3 hours straight. I think I worked for. It's amazing. And, you know, if you think about the barriers of entry to even get into that race, he has the ability to monopolize that. So I think long term, he'll maintain it. I think he'll probably cross, you know, and build from it as well.
Wow. Isn't that crazy? The kind of money that is possible.
It's mind-boggling numbers. It's 12 zeros. I'm like, wow, dude.
Right.
It's incredible.
Anyway, that's just different kind of money. But, you know, talking about money again, you know how they always tell you that your company or the people you keep around you also really impacts your relationship with money. And now this always comes to mind, this episode of Friends. Did you watch Friends?
I used to watch Friends, yeah.
Do you remember there's an episode because 3 of them were not earning that well and the 3 others are earning that well. And they were like, every time there's something to celebrate, every time, let's do something nice, let's do this. And then they end up having to have the free bread or something at the restaurant because they can't afford it.
Yeah.
But would you say it's a bad idea to surround yourself with people who earn more than you, or is that a good idea?
I think it's good. I mean, I think you are kind of the byproduct of the people that you have around you, right?
Yeah.
I think if you have people around you who are earning more, who are supportive and inspiring. A friend of mine, I always quote this, but a friend of mine named Barbie, for years she used to talk about radiators and drain pipes, okay? And what that reference is you need to be mindful of the people that you have around you. So radiators are the people who will inspire you, egg you on, try and encourage you to go for the thing that you really, really want. Drain pipes are the opposite. They'll drain you of any enthusiasm, inspiration. They want you to be where they are in the rut. And I think in that context, having people around you, as long as they're inspiring, pushing you, wanting you to do better, I think it can be a massive driving force. Because I think, as human beings, we're naturally competitive.
Yeah.
We naturally, as long as you can, get the devil off your shoulder, trying to be like, pluck up the envy gene, as long as you can control that, I think ultimately we always want to kind of like be competitive with our peers and push each other. And I think good things come out of that, as long as you can control any envy and stuff like that. So, yeah.
But, in Dubai, for example, there's a lot of people who... So, recently I discovered there's something called the Ajman Mall, where you've heard of it, where they sell all the fake luxury items.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking, why would people buy it? But then I realized that a lot of people do it because of the
Keeping
pressure.
up with the Joneses.
Right. It's like literally keeping up with the Joneses.
Yeah.
It's like trying to look the part.
Yeah.
So even if they
Fake
can't
it till you
afford
make
it,
it.
they're like, I need to fake it till I make it. And then hanging out with people who make more money than you might also put that pressure on you that I don't want to look like I don't have it. So until I have it, I need to play the game.
Yeah.
And that's how also a lot of people get into debt.
Yes,
right?
That's very, very true, yeah.
Very true. And I remember hearing the statistics about how many people who move to Dubai thinking for a few years they're going to save a lot of money end up going back in
Nothing.
debt.
Yeah. I have clients like that. I talk through things like that as well here. And look, I think you have to really know yourself and you've got to be comfortable in your own skin. Because I think especially in a place like Dubai when, Ferraris and Lamborghinis and Rolls Royces would drive down the road. I had a friend who came to visit me last year and he was like, dude, I feel broke here. And I'm like, dude, that's the wrong way to look at this.
Yeah.
If you're coming here and you're looking at all the shiny things, don't move here because you're not in the right mindset. You've got to be extremely comfortable with who you are and understanding that, to have nice cars and nice watches and designer stuff, it's all very well and nice, but I don't know. I've been through the phase where, because I was, I was fostered for 3 months. I went back to Nigeria with no electricity, no water. I got sent back with 50 quid. I was homeless and then got into debt. So I've gone through the cycle of having nothing, dreaming about earning good money, getting into Canary Wharf, earning really, really well, and then going out and buying all the designer stuff.
Yeah.
All of my idols at the time were, hip-hop artists, Puff Daddy, Biggie, Tupac. They're all wearing chains and showing off. So naturally, in my 20s, that's what I'm doing. I'm going to buy the things that I thought I would never have. And the truth is, once you start buying those things, you quickly start realizing, well, actually, it's not what it's cracked up to be. It's nice, but is it really £3,000 nice? Probably not.
Yeah.
I mean, I think we've all got to come to those realizations, and it's easy for me to say it with hindsight. But for 20-something, maybe listening to this will be like, oh, very nice for you, Pete. But
After you got it, yeah.
After you've got it, that's all very nice. But I hope that everyone can experience and come to that epiphany themselves. And I think just being centered, understanding what really matters. Money is important, but it's also important what you do with it and understanding how you're going to use it to create or give you what you want.
I mean, talking about that, we actually got a few confessions from people.
Okay.
And we're going to put you to work here with the advice. Okay. So the first one is actually relevant to what we're talking about. So I'm 29, living in Dubai, earning 50,000 a month, dirhams. No kids, no debt, and I've worked incredibly hard to get here. I've always dreamed of owning a Porsche, and I can finally afford one. My friends tell me life's too short and I should enjoy my money. My parents think it's a terrible financial decision. Shall I buy the car?
Okay. Look, if I say don't buy the car, it's probably not going to scratch your itch. Okay. So look, if you're earning 600,000 dirhams a year, I mean, that's very, very good money.
Yeah.
You're 29, no kids.
No kids, no debt.
No debt. That's an amazing space to be. I would probably say go rent one first. See if you like it before you commit to one. If you do, then perhaps go buy it. But I think the important thing is, laying the foundations around making sure that if you are going to go buy this thing, don't overextend yourself. Don't get yourself into debt to do it. Yes, you can go and get up like a decent finance deal. As long as you can cover the monthly payments, that's completely fine. But I understand there's an itch to scratch there. I've had nice cars before and it's nice driving around in them. But after a while, to be honest, they become a bit of a pain.
Yep.
They do. I mean, I drive
I have an MG as well.
I've got an MG7.
Me
I
too.
love that thing.
I love my car.
I drive around in that. I'm happy in that. You know, I've had Teslas, I've driven around in Lamborghinis and stuff like that. And they're great. Don't get me wrong, but things like Lamborghinis, if you go and get Performante, it's stiff. Like, it hurts your back. It's not very comfortable, you know? So it really depends what you want. So go buy it, but I would say maybe go rent it first, but make sure you've got the foundations in place. But from the sounds of it, no debt, good income, no kids. That's a good time. Good time. Yeah, good place to be.
All right, next one. I'm 33 and I earn 25,000 dirhams a month. I still have around 150,000 in student loans, but I'm also thinking about getting married and I know I should start investing. Every month I feel like I have to choose between paying off debt or building my future. What would you do if you were me?
Okay, so I'm guessing this is UK student loan.
Probably. They didn't say.
Okay, 150 is a lot. I think this is all about priorities at the end of the day, right? So 25,000 a month is still pretty good in terms of income. It's going to be about prioritizing. Obviously, you're going to need to cover your essential bills first and foremost. The difference between paying down the debt and actually investing the money, it's all going to come down to how much of that debt is a problem. How much does it weigh on you? And also, what kind of student loan debt do you have? Yeah. Plan 2s in the UK at the moment have had a lot of press coverage. For a lot of people, and again, depending on where you are in circumstances, if you're looking to get on the property ladder and buy a house, I would probably say buying a house over paying down the debt because the house would appreciate in value. So I think in that instance, pay what you can, but still look at building that asset, buying a house or doing whatever you can do. On the investing side, even if you look at the numbers purely from like historic performance, and past performance is no indication of future performance, but there is an argument to run the numbers and see, based on how much you want to put in every single month, based on average returns, what would that compound to over a period of time versus how much would you pay off your student loan and interest. I would hazard a guess that the investing picture would come out better than the student loan element. But again, this is going to be about choices. How much of a problem is that student loan? If it's not a bit of a problem, where you're like, okay, cool, I can still make some payments and eventually it's going to get written off. If they still permit that now on some of the plans, then I would focus on the investing and trying to build for the future. Because that money, if you're able to really build something over a period of time, you can take some of that money and pay off the student loan anyway. So,
exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Third one. I earn 9,000 dirhams a month in Dubai and I spend almost 25% of my salary. I send almost 25% of my salary home to support my family. I also have around 20,000 dirhams in debt from moving here. Sometimes I feel like financial freedom is for everyone except me. What's the very first step you would tell me to take?
I think financial freedom, that term is thrown around a lot. Okay. So for this person, what does financial freedom actually mean to you? And I think I'm not talking about thinking big picture. I'm thinking like in the now, in the short term, 3 to 6 months. What does financial freedom actually look like? Because for a lot of people, it may just be, okay, I can cover my bills. I can get myself established and know that, okay, I'm going to be sweet for the time being without being too thinking too large about investing, making millions or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
I think if you can get an idea of what that is first, that will tell you what to do. Because for a lot of people, the idea of financial freedom, for a lot of people that I work with, is simply just having an emergency fund where it's like, I can pay my bills if anything were to change. And I think maybe for this person, it will be exactly the same thing. If they're sending money home, they've got a little bit of debt, they're still having to live here and pay for the cost here, I would imagine the financial pressure is, okay, am I paycheck to paycheck on a monthly basis? I think if you build an emergency fund, that gives you a little bit of breathing room. And what that will also do is it will free up mental space as well. It's very, very weird, and I always try and kind of, it's hard to explain to people, but I tell people that when you get to a position where you do have that emergency fund in place, a weight comes off your shoulders. The decisions that you then start making around your finances and life just in general are very different because you don't have this constant urge of, I have to do this. I have to go here. I have to do this, to pay this. And I think that puts you in a different category altogether. So I think, understanding what that freedom thing is for you, if it's a number, what does that look like in the next 3 to 6 months maybe, and try and make headrooms to giving yourself a little bit of financial buffer. That will give you space to build other things and look at the things more holistically.
Yeah, very good advice. The next one, the fear of investing. I've managed to save 300,000 dirhams over the last few years, right? Good amount. But I'm terrified of investing it because I work so hard for every dirham. It feels safer sitting in my bank account, even though I know inflation is eating away at it. How do I get over that fear?
The best way you can do this, and I run clients through exercises with this, right? I'm going to break this down into the bare bones. Because the reason why people are scared is because they don't really understand what investing is all about.
Yes.
Okay, so let's think about investing and what it means, bare bones, every single day. So you think about the population of the planet, what are we, 6 to 8 billion right now, right? What are the things that we all need to survive as human beings? Food,
water,
clothing, energy, shelter, medical, right, needs. If you look at those things specifically, those are fundamental needs we all have. So when you think about investing, the question then becomes, all right, so if you look at our basic needs, fundamental needs, who are the companies providing those things? Because it will go to reason to say there'll be massive companies making a load of money and they should be very successful. So when you look at it that way, investing is simply putting money into those companies. Now, on top of that, think about what is the cycle that we're all in every single day, regardless of whether you have 1 million, 10 million quid or £1,000 in the bank. What do we all do? We go to work to earn money to buy those things.
Correct.
So it tells you that the market is solid. The need for those things will always be there. And I think if you understand that, this idea that it's risky to invest evaporates. Because you're investing in companies that are serving our fundamental needs that we're going to need forever. So once you understand that, that's the first step. Then it's about, okay, cool. So you got 300,000 dirhams. It's good money, okay? So how do you go about investing in those companies specifically? You may not want to start at a very high risk level because there are risk levels that you can go. You can start at a low risk. You can buy something like, I don't know, an ETF or a diversified fund or something like that, where you're going to have those companies invested in different proportions. And we can talk about asset classes and bonds and all this kind of things. There are providers that will do all of this for you. Yeah. But understanding the fundamental premise of what investing is should give you some peace in knowing that those things are always going to need to be serviceable. If you look back over the markets historically, again, future performance is not an indication, past performance is no indication of future performance. We know that the S&P 500, for example, which is the main one most people quote, has done, 10% every single year for the past, 20 odd years. So just think about what that potentially means for your money. Now, it doesn't mean put all 300,000 into it. Yeah. How much are you comfortable with? It could be you're only comfortable with putting 100,000 in to kind of build some confidence. You still have 200,000 dirhams left there. But just taking the first step and understanding, risk is part of the game, but you can mitigate that risk. How long you're looking to invest for is a big component to this as well. If you're investing for 3 years, then maybe not, because it's too short of a time if the markets were to, be volatile, which they will be. But if you don't need the money for 10, 15 years, 20 odd years, inflation will deride that money anyway. And when you start looking at how compound interest works on 300,000 dirhams or 150,000 dirhams, what that will be worth over the long term is mind-boggling. And when you anchor that to, we're simply just investing in companies that provide the services and the things that we need as human beings, it's a lot easier to approach and to digest.
No, that makes it very easy to do, actually. Okay, we have a final one. Everyone around me seems to be upgrading their life, new apartments, luxury holidays, designer bags, expensive watches. I can technically afford to keep up, but deep down, I know I would be spending most of my salary just to look successful. Am I being too cautious, or am I actually protecting my future here?
You're protecting your future 100%. This is the thing, right? It's one thing to look wealthy or rich. It's one thing to actually be rich or to have money in the bank. I know so many people, clients. I worked with a client many, many years ago in financial planning. He was in the fashion industry, ran his own business. He was earning something like 15,000, 20,000 pounds a month. This was back in 2015.
Yeah.
He had a massive house in Kingston in the UK. So house, huge, £1.5 million house. Good money, didn't have any savings whatsoever. In fact, had £60,000 on credit card debt. How is that possible, you'll ask?
Oof. House poor, classic.
right?
Yeah.
And I think it's really important to like the cars, the nice things, they're all there. But what's the point in having them if you don't have any money in your bank account to bail you out when you really need it? Social media has warped the way we think. Like,
It's all validation, right?
It's all validation, which is why it comes back to you have to really understand who you are and what this is all about. If, you want the designer bags, okay, cool, go get them. But don't put yourself in debt to go get them.
Yeah.
You know, treat yourself. I mean, I have nice things. I would typically treat myself when I tie something to my business. So I say, if I do this in my business, I'm going to treat myself to this thing. So it's not only driving me forward, but it's also a bit of a reward. Do something like that, for example. If you know, okay, I would really like to buy this thing. I've got the money to do it, but you don't want to go overboard.
Yeah.
You've got to really understand how you're going to navigate that on your own. But you're protecting yourself in that situation. You know, keeping up with the Joneses is where people really get into trouble, like
Absolutely.
real big trouble.
You know, even for me, for my birthday this year, I was considering buying myself a nice watch. But now I've decided I'm putting that money into getting a bigger place instead of a smaller place.
Yeah.
So I was like, that way, I'm still treating myself. I still feel like I'm doing something special, but it's in a better place.
Yeah.
Final question from me. If you, let's say, God forbid, if you lost everything today, but you had all the knowledge that you've built over the years, in the next 12 months, how would you rebuild your wealth?
A lot of my wealth is pretty much in stocks, property, and within my business. So if I had to start from scratch today, I would pretty much plow most of my efforts into my business, really. Technology, something I'm playing around with at the minute, building stuff. I would focus a lot of my energy there because I think the key thing that you need to be able to build is income. If you haven't got the income, it's very, very difficult to build. So my efforts would go into leveraging technology, AI, in the fintech space to really then help people. And I would use that. I would then probably off the back of that, once you start earning, yes, money will go into the stock market, but then probably put money into property and stuff like that as well, and use different asset classes to kind of build from there. But I would focus on income first, predominantly through business.
That's a very good point. I think we forget that the way to build is to first earn the money.
100%.
Right?
If you need a seed in order for it to germinate and grow into a tree. So if you don't have the seed, where does it come from? You know, income is really important, which is why when we talk about financial management, budgeting, if you don't get that basic thing right, everything else goes wrong.
Yeah.
It all builds from prudent financial management, understanding what you have coming in, going out, and how you structure from there on out.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much, Peter. This was incredible, and I'm sure people will get a lot of value from this.
Thank you. Cheers.
So thank you for being here.
Thank you.